today I'm going to just do a demonstration of sauerkraut making. So I have my cabbages. We've got local organic cabbages. I do always recommend getting organic whenever you can. I tend to just peel off the sort of first layer and check that there's any bugs or anything like that on the cabbage. So with the lacto-fermentation method of making sauerkraut, basically what's happening is the bacteria lives on the cabbage. It lives on every living thing. And so what we're doing is we're creating a lactic acid environment by slicing the cabbages and adding salt. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and slice this a little bit here. I'm using a mandolin here. You could use a knife, you can use a food processor. I make it in a commercial kitchen, and I have a big Hobart machine that's like a lot quicker. But I'm just going to show you with this mandolin here. This is a really good one that you can get from kitchen stores. Just be very, very careful with the blade. So I like to cut it quite fine, but it really doesn't matter. And so I'm just going to show you here. Here we go. And then I put it in my bowl here. Let me just, sorry. That's good. And so I've given you guys, you'll be getting a handout, and there is a recipe guideline there. And so today I've basically sliced up 5 pounds of cabbage, and we're going to do around 3 tablespoons of salt. Now, don't worry if you do a little bit too much, a little less. You know, if you go overboard, then it won't ferment. But if you do not enough, then it's going to get too mushy. So there is a, it's usually around 2%. That's kind of what I tell people, 2%. And with a 5 pound of cabbages, it's around 3 tablespoons. I like to use Himalayan salt or sea salt, obviously the best quality, again, with all those trace minerals. So in here, I've already added some salt already, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more, and we're gonna mix this up. And so you really have to get in there and squish it to release, and you're breaking down the walls of the cabbage. And so this releases the juice. The salt sucks, right? Salt sucks the liquid out of the cabbage. And so that's what we're doing here. We're breaking it down, and we're getting the juice flowing. Okay, so I'm just going to pass this to Jess to maybe carry on, and I did some little, which I prepared earlier, which I will show you. So I'll pass me that bowl over there. So I did this one a little bit earlier to let it go, just so that we could get through this a bit faster. And so, and as you can see, like there's juice coming out. So this is just a basic sauerkraut recipe. You can add other spices to it. I have a traditional one that I make with mustard seed, juniper, bay, and a little bit of caraway. Today I'm just going to do this plain sauerkraut. It's delicious too. So one of the benefits of sauerkraut and eating sauerkraut is that so the bacteria proliferates, and so you've got this, once it's fermented, you've got this product which is full of probiotics, which is so good for your gut. You actually get more nutrients absorbed into your body by this process, because it's kind of pre-digesting, so it's easy to digest. It's full of live enzymes as well, which helps you digest other things you're eating. It's often eaten alongside rich foods, which can be hard to digest for some people. So that's another reason that we've done it. And, over the past, it's such a great way. That's one of the reasons why they're here, is preserving the foods of the summer, and it just lasts for a very long time. Once you've packed it and put it in and fermented it, it essentially lasts forever, really. I mean, it doesn't really ever go bad. It could if you didn't process it properly and you let it mold, and then you wouldn't want to eat that. But if you do it properly and you keep it submerged, then keep it submerged with all this lovely juice, then it preserves it. Captain Cook, he traveled around the world, and on a ship with barrels, wooden barrels of sauerkraut, which they ate. And after, I think it was like 27 months, it was still good enough to eat and to feed the Portuguese noblemen, so it is said. So, and they didn't have a fridge, they just, you know, had a ship and all different kinds of temperatures. So I'm just going to show you the kind of jars that I like to use when I'm doing it at home, and I recommend people. I like to use these wide mouth mason jars. How are we doing for time?
I think you're okay. So,
okay. So these wide mouth mason jars are great. And so once we've squished the sauerkraut and it's started to release its juice, then we'll pack it in. I'll just do this with one here, so for time. Pack it in. And then what we're gonna pack it in pretty firm. So we want to get rid of any air pockets. And you'll see the liquid coming up. So we'll pack it in. And then we're going to leave it to ferment on the counter for, can I have a tray? We're going to leave it to ferment on the counter for about a week. With this sort of size jars, you don't actually need that long. I have mine in big crocks, and it takes longer, 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the temperature and the time of year. But for a little thing like this in your home, it takes 7 days, and it is ready to eat. So we squish it down, and we make sure the liquid is rising nicely above it. And so I always recommend putting it on some kind of tray, because when this process happens, it's going to release carbon dioxide, and so it will push the liquid up, and it will sometimes overflow. So what we do is we get another small jar, and then we can put it on top to weigh it down. Another option to do is use one of the leaves from your cabbage, and you can use that as a little lid to keep it sort of tucked in. And you can squish it down, and that keeps all the little sort of floaty bits from coming up the sides. And I have something else to show you as well that I had made, which is quite fun. These little weights that I had made out of ceramic from a local potter. And so that's another thing you could put on. As you know, when I'm doing my big crocks, I have big plates that I put, and then I weigh it down. So this kind of is like a fun little decorative thing that you can put on as well, which I thought was kind of fun. So you can weigh that down like this, like so. So the liquid rises all the way up above the cabbage, because you don't want the oxygen to touch the actual cabbage. It's an anaerobic reaction, so it needs to be with no oxygen. And then you put your other jar on top, and you can fill that with water. And here we go. Fill it with water. You can put a rock on top. Have we got a, okay, anyway, we can even just do it like that. It's actually weighed it enough that the liquid is rising above. But the next thing that I would do is grab I'm just going to grab my cloth. You can use this. I have a little cloth that I have, but it's put away for now, but this will do. So then you cover it. Let's get this nicely. Cover it, and then you can put an elastic band, and you can leave it on your counter. The other option is to even just put a lid on top here, and then it'll ferment, and it will push up. So every day you're going to have to go in and let the gas go every day. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to do it, but don't leave it and forget about it. That is the worst thing you could do. You need to check on it. It doesn't mind being looked at. It doesn't mind being tasted. You know, you check on it. Mold doesn't like movement. So if you're going in and, you know, pushing it down, that's absolutely fine. In fact, that's the best thing for it. If you just leave it, then sometimes a little film of mold will appear, and that is called calm, and it is benign. And don't worry, you haven't ruined the whole thing, but you can scoop it off, clean it up, and then put it back again and let it do its thing. But that won't really happen after 7 days. It only really happens sort of if you leave it for longer, like months. So that's that for the sauerkraut. And Jess is going to show us, yep, cool. Jess is going to show us a method for brining.
Yeah, so if you want to do other veggies that aren't cabbage, because cabbage, you saw it creates its own moisture, If you're gonna do other veggies like carrots or beets, something hard that doesn't release juices, you can create a brine solution. It's 1 tablespoon of salt to 1 cup of water. So you want to also maybe melt the salt a little bit with some warm water and then top it off. Filtered water is the best to use if you have the option. So today I'm going to show you guys some beets. I already prepared 1 jar over here. And I did a ginger rose hip flavor in here. I don't really ever measure my flavors that much, but you can get creative. You could do ginger, garlic, you could do allspice or anything you really want. Maybe in a jar this size, you could do like half a teaspoon of like a powdered like chili or anything that you want for flavor. So you want to chop up the veggie, whatever size you want. I did little like cubes. You can do strips, you could do like small like julienne type of thing, whatever you want. Can you see my cutting board? Let me move over a little bit. So I've already prepped some, but I'll just chop these up into the shape that I want. And then you want to mix them up and also weigh it. So you want, whatever your total weight is, you want 2% salt. So the solution is already good, but for whatever the weight of the beets are and the flavoring, I'm going to weigh it and then do 2% salt on top of that. All right, so I have pretty much like almost 300 grams. Okay, a little bit more now with the flavors. I put some ginger in there. I'm just gonna put some rose hips in there too. Like I said, I don't weigh, I just go for it.
Intuition.
And so we have 318. So 318 times 0.02. About 3.6 6.4 salt. So it's just going to be over a teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of salt is 5 grams. So that will kind of be a good reference point. It doesn't have to be like super perfect 2%. It could be like 1.8, 1.9% salt. It's not like a huge thing.
Just don't put a cup.
Yeah, don't put a cup of salt and it won't ferment.
Yeah.
So I have my salt. I have all my beautiful things in this bowl. I'll just give it a quick little mix around and then put it in your jar. So I have a jar here. See if it all fits in this one.
Do the thing.
Use it.
Oh, I think I'm good. It's happening. It's going in here. So it doesn't all quite fit, but that's totally okay. You could always use a bigger jar. You can make 2 different jars if you want. I like to make them in a couple small jars because then you can gift them to people or have, you know, less space taking up in your fridge as you consume it. So I have that in there. It's probably as far as I want to put it in because I'm going to put a jar on top to weigh it down. You can see it's just like a little bit from the top. And then I'm going to pour in my solution. So again, this is 1 tablespoon of salt to 1 cup of water. And Alice has created a beautiful handout that will get delivered to all the participants after with all this information. So you can refer to it. Okay. And then maybe I should grab that tray in case it overfills on me.
Yes.
Jess, can I ask a question?
Yeah. I have a live question, everybody. Let's go. What is it?
My question is, you have your salt brine.
Yes.
And you added salt to your vegetables.
This is correct because you want 2% salt for the total weight, including the water and the vegetable.
Oh, okay.
2% total.
You have 2% for your vegetables and 2% in your brine, so it'll, okay.
So that when the total weight comes together of the vegetables and the water, it all is weight. It's 2% in total. Yes.
That helps a lot. Okay.
Yes, but instead of having to figure out math and like how much does this water weigh in this jar, you can just make an easy solution, Doesn't matter if you actually use all of it, it's just salt water. But then yes, you'd want to weigh out your veggies, total weight, including like garlic and ginger, anything you add that creates weight. Do the math for 2%, or you can even do like math for like 1.9 or 1.8. That's also a nice number to use. And then my weight, a little jar, put on top. Similar to what Alice did, you just want to make sure all the veggies are actually covered with the brine. And then I like to take like a little cheesecloth, something that will cover it. Yep. Maybe I'll use 2. Put that on top like that, and then allow elastic band to keep it all secure in there. And with beets, sometimes they can be a little extra tricky and create more mold. So this is definitely something you want to be checking regularly, once a day, at least once a week, I would say, maybe twice a week. And if you do see any mold on the top, I would just skim it off and it's totally fine. As long as all your beets are underneath the brine, they will be safe. If you have little bits of garlic or ginger that float up to the side, I would scoop those off with the mold so that you don't contaminate the rest of your delicious medicine. And I feel like I'm completed for this. So great. Alice is also going to quickly talk about canning. So I'll pass it back to Alice here.
Hi. Okay, so I'll just show you. I did some canning yesterday, and I made some pickled beets. So this is done in a sort of traditional way of pickling with a vinegar solution. So it's vinegar. This particular recipe I can share with you. I didn't put it on the sheet, but I have it right here in my pocket. I used 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, 1 cup of water, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of cloves, 2 teaspoons of allspice, and 1 cinnamon stick, and 4 pounds of beets. I actually doubled this, so I did 8 pounds, and I came up with, I had 4 large quart jars like this and 1 little one here. And so with this method of preserving the wonderful beets that are available right now, and there's a Pacific farm called Plenty Wild. I don't know if anyone's been to the Squamish Farmers Market, but they've got lots of beets this year. So I went and bought quite a lot of them. So we're going to preserve some for the winter and enjoy them. And I wanted to try this recipe. I think I'm going to try another one with less sugar, because I'm not a big fan of adding too much sugar to my diet, albeit this would be very delicious. So the method that I used for this was what I did with these beets, and specifically I cooked them first. So I cooked them with the skins on. And the reason I did that is so that they won't bleed into they won't lose their color, and we want to keep that beautiful dark color and all the nutrients that come along with it, right? So I could pre-cook them for about 20 minutes. I kept them whole, and they were pretty big, so I think it might have even done 30 minutes. So depending how big they are, they'll take longer. And then I peeled them, took the skins off, cut them up, and meanwhile I had my vinegar solution ready. The other really important thing with canning is the jars, the cleanliness, and having the temperature. So you have your canner on, which is a large pot with a special metal sort of frame in where you can put your jars, and so we have to sterilize the jars in the hot water first and have them hot, but before you're adding in the beets and the juice, and then you're adding it back into the pot to can for 30 minutes. You'll find online different times, and I think really sort of 20 to 30 minutes is ideal. It also depends on the altitude that you're at. The higher you are, the longer you do it for. But what happens is it creates like a pressure, and it keeps it all clean and everything. So the lids have to be heated, the jars have to be heated. You add it all when it's all hot, and then you put it in for 20 to 30 minutes. If you accidentally are using like a cold glass jar, you put it in hot water, it's obviously going to crack and you're going to lose it all. So so you cook it for 20 to 30 minutes, and then take it out and let it cool, and throughout the evening you'll hear us popping sounds, and that's the lids popping and getting sucked in so that it keeps it nice and tight. And then you're going to want to give another little twist to make sure it's properly sealed, and then you leave it. And with these particular this particular recipe, it's recommended to let them sit for at least 2 weeks to kind of mature and really get all that flavor from the spices, the allspice, and I put cinnamon in here too, and let it get into the and then you can keep it for up to a year. And it's just a really great way of preserving all those lovely vegetables. And it's really quick and this method is a little bit more of a process than the brining, and that is definitely a much healthier way to go about it with all the probiotics, which I'm a big fan of. Yeah, it's inexpensive to make yourself, really. You just need to sort of set aside a Sunday afternoon, get some friends together, a cup of tea, and enjoy. I did want to mention another couple of things. There's a book that I use in a specific author that I don't know if anyone's heard of, Sandor Katz. He's from America, and he's kind of the, I don't know, godfather of fermentation. And I know Squamish Library has The Art of Fermentation. He's got a really big, thick book, and it talks about all kinds of ferments. So you can get that out of the library and have a look at that. It's really fascinating. And then he's got another book called Wild Fermentation, and it's a smaller book, and it's just really so much information and so many things that we can do with fermentation, and it's just it's really fun to read. And I like him specifically because he's, you know, and I think Jess is the same, you know, we go with our intuition about things. It's not always like the exact measurements, and you go with the smell and the taste and the feel, and he's all about that, you know, and I like that about it, you know. And so I encourage you all to try out some ferments, and if anyone's got any questions, yes.
I realize I want to add something about my presentation, and we can get into questions real quick. Because I had already had my beets chopped, I kind of forgot to mention. Like for carrots or beets, I like to keep the skin on. I don't peel them. I just give them a really good scrub to get the dirt off mostly. The nice bacteria, like good bacteria that grows like on the outside of the skin and stuff, actually can help the fermentation process, and lots of extra nutrients in there for you. So I don't peel my beets. Just give them a good scrub. You can cut off any like gross parts because you want it to be all good. Get organic veggies, like Alice mentioned before, is the best. And for cleaning my jars, I don't do the whole jarring thing where you put it in boiling water. I just give them a really, really good rinse under some hot water, let them air dry, and then they're good to go for fermenting. And for timing for these, it depends on how hot it is in the summer. You know, it's going to ferment a lot faster than in the winter, depending on how hot your house is. But with beets, you do want to check them very often because of the mold. So you can be tasting it. You can be like, okay, it's fermented enough based on the smell. But anything between 1 to 4 weeks is normally ideal for fermenting. And so, same with the sauerkraut too. And like tasting along the way, when it's ready, it's ready. And so once it's fermented on the counter, then you put it in the fridge, and the fridge is your fermentation slowing device, basically. So you move it from the counter into the fridge, and then that keeps it, you know, or a cold room. It doesn't have to be the fridge, but somewhere where it's cold. And if people have asked me before, can you freeze it? You could, but you'll kill all the bacteria, and it'll be soft and disgusting. So I wouldn't do that. Not disgusting, but the other thing is if you make some and you kind of forget about it and leave it at the back of your fridge, and you're like, oh my God, I feel like this has been in there for over a year and I'm not really sure. And it's still fine. It's still absolutely fine. It will taste more sour, more acidic, but you can always use it also for cooking. You can add it in soups and stews, and it adds a really nice component to that. So I never waste it. And I just wanted to show you the beautiful colors of the different sauerkrauts that you can make. You know, this one is a combination of red and green cabbage with chilies, ginger, and green onion and garlic. And this one has got turmeric in it, fresh turmeric and carrot and ginger. And then this is the traditional one that I make. So if anyone has any questions after this, you know, you're always welcome to get in touch and talk to me. I sell my stuff at the farmers market as well in Squamish, so you can talk to me then.